en indiquant que le premier connaissait votre travail et nous devons vous évaluer objectivement. Nous ne sommes pas là pour vous faire du mal, nous ne sommes pas là pour vous faire du bien, nous sommes là juste pour la science. Donc voilà, évitez de faire les bruits au fond, on est silencieux. Concernant cette thèse qui a été dirigée par le professeur Chalabiton Yves, vous avez oublié Jean de Loisy. Le sujet porte sur the legal implication of medical laws and malpractice in the healthcare system of sub-Saharan African countries. If you are ready, you have the floor.
Good morning, Mr. President and members of the jury. Thank you for the privilege to present my thesis this morning. The legal implications of medical errors and malpractices in the healthcare system of sub-Saharan African countries addresses one of the most important legal and healthcare challenges facing modern societies. In modern healthcare system, the practice of medicine is regarded as one of the most sensitive and high-risk professions due to its direct impact on human life. The fundamental principle guiding medical practice has long been rooted in the Hippocratic injunction to do no harm, which places a moral and professional obligation on healthcare providers to act with utmost care, competence, and diligence. However, despite these guiding principles, medical errors continue to occur across healthcare systems worldwide, raising serious concerns about patient safety and professional accountability. The issue of medical errors is not limited to developed healthcare systems, but is increasingly becoming a major concern in developing regions, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa, where fragile health systems, limited resources, and weak institutional frameworks create conditions that heighten the risk of avoidable harm. Medical care is expected to protect life and improve health. However, in practice, there are situations where the actions or omissions of healthcare professionals lead to harm instead of healing. These situations are commonly referred to as medical errors and malpractices. Medical errors may arise from wrong diagnosis, incorrect treatment, surgical mistakes, or failure to provide care. Malpractice, on the other hand, occurs when the healthcare provider fails to meet the standards expected in the medical profession, resulting in injury or damage to the patient. In many sub-Saharan African countries, the problem of medical errors and malpractices is becoming increasingly visible. Weak healthcare systems, lack of adequate equipment, shortage of qualified personnel, and poor regulation contribute to this situation. Patients often suffer harm without proper compensation, while healthcare providers sometimes operate in unclear legal environments. This raises serious concerns about accountability, patient safety, and the effectiveness of existing legal frameworks. In spite of the existence of legal frameworks regulating medical practice in sub-Saharan African countries, the issue of medical errors and malpractice continues to persist as a major challenge. Healthcare system in countries such as Cameroon, Nigeria, Ghana, Gabon, which is an area of concern, are confronted with increasing cases of negligence, poor service delivery, and lack of accountability. This situation is further aggravated by weak enforcement of laws, institutional inefficiency, corruption, and a general culture of silence within the medical profession. As a result, victims of medical errors often lack access to justice, and healthcare providers are rarely held accountable. This study therefore seeks to examine why these challenges persist despite the presence of legal provisions, and to assess the effectiveness of existing mechanisms in addressing medical errors and malpractices in the regions. These realities have led to the choice of this study titled "The Legal Implications of Medical Errors and Malpractices in the Healthcare System of Sub-Saharan African Countries." From this topic, the central question guiding this study is whether the existing frameworks in sub-Saharan African countries are effective in addressing medical errors and malpractice within the healthcare system. This broad question is further supported by subsidiary questions relating to the process of medical errors, the nature of the legal liability, and the reasons behind the persistent failure of enforcement mechanism despite the existence of legal provisions. The main objective of this study is to critically examine the legal implications of medical errors and the malpractice within the healthcare system of selected African countries, with particular focus on Cameroon, Nigeria, Ghana, and Gabon. The study seeks to assess the extent to which existing legal frameworks are effective in regulating medical practice, ensuring accountability and providing remedies to victims of medical negligence. In doing so, it aims to bridge the gap between the legal theory and practical realities within the healthcare system in the region. The study is based on the assumption that although legal and institutional framework exists in many Southern African countries, their implementation remains weak, thereby limiting effective accountability for medical errors and malpractices. The study adopts a doctrinal approach which involves a critical analysis of legal text, case laws, and relevant literature to evaluate the effectiveness of existing rules and practices. It equally adopts a comparative approach since we are dealing with multiple jurisdictions. It enables a broader understanding of how different legal systems address similar challenges. The study relies on both primary and secondary sources of data. Primary sources will include the legislation, the case law, and regulatory instruments governing medical practice, while the secondary sources consist of academic literature, journal articles, institutional reports, and relevant online material. The term of scope of the study is limited geographically to 4 sub-Saharan African countries, which are namely Cameroon, Nigeria, Ghana, and Gabon, selected for their diverse legal system and healthcare structures. This comparative scope enables a broader understanding of challenges and opportunities in addressing medical errors within the region. Mr. President of the jury, honorable members of the jury, in order to present the work clearly, the work is divided into 2 main parts. The first part examines the character of medical errors and malpractices. It begins by identifying the common types of medical errors and the factors that contribute to the occurrences. It further explores the legal and the institutional foundations that regulate medical practice within the healthcare system. While the second part focuses on the implementation of liability for medical errors, it discusses both the administrative and judicial responses to malpractice, including sanctions and enforcement mechanisms. The study also highlights the various legal, institutional, and operational challenges that heighten effective regulations. Looking at the comparative assessment of these 4 countries, the study reveals that despite differences in economic capacity and national structure, all 4 countries experience significant challenges in addressing medical errors and malpractice. Common patterns emerge, including weak enforcement of legal frameworks, inadequate regulatory oversight, and the persistence of informal practice within the healthcare system. While Ghana demonstrates relatively strong institutional organization and Gabon benefits from higher resources available, these advantages, however, does not limit the occurrence of medical errors. This suggests that the problem is not confined to a single national context, but it's reflective of broader systemic weaknesses across the region. These 4 countries were selected because they represent different legal traditions and healthcare regulation systems within the sub-Saharan African countries. Cameroon has a mixed legal system combining civil law and common law, while Nigeria and Ghana predominantly operate under the common law, and Gabon follows the civil system. This diversity provided a rich comparative framework for examining how different legal systems regulate medical errors and malpractice, protect patients' rights, and enforce professional accountability. Furthermore, these countries face similar healthcare challenges, including inadequate resources, regulatory enforcement on the reporting of medical errors, and limited access to justice for victims. Comparing them enables us to identify both common challenges and best practices that could strengthen legal and healthcare reforms across the regions. Looking at the findings, the study reveals that although legal frameworks governing medical liability exist in all the selected countries, their effectiveness is significantly limited in practice. The persistence of medical errors is largely driven by systemic factors such as institutional weaknesses, corruption, inadequate infrastructures, and insufficient professional accountability. It further emerges that the gap between law and practice is a central issue, as legal provisions are rarely enforced effectively, and victims of medical negligence often face considerable barriers in accessing justice. This demonstrates that medical errors in Sub-Saharan Africa are not merely individual or professional failures, but are deeply embedded within broader structural and governance challenges. From a legal perspective, the persistence of medical errors raises critical concerns regarding liability, accountability, and the protection of patients' rights, while civil, criminal, and administrative mechanisms for addressing medical negligence exist. Their practical applications remain weak and inconsistent. The difficulties in improving negligence, coupled with limited access to legal representation and prolonged judicial processes, discourages victims from pursuing legal actions. As a result, healthcare providers are rarely held accountable, which undermines the deterrent function of the law. This situation highlights the urgent need for reforms aimed at strengthening legal enforcement and ensuring that medical liability mechanisms effectively serve the intended purpose. The principal contribution of this research lies in the comparative legal analysis of these four countries. The study identifies common systemic deficiencies and proposes a harmonized legal framework for improving medical accountability while balancing patient protection with the legitimate interests of healthcare professionals. In the light of this finding, the study recommends a number of measures aimed at improving accountability and reducing medical errors within healthcare systems. This includes strengthening regulatory institutions, enhancing supervision of healthcare providers, and ensuring the effective enforcement of existing legal frameworks. There is also a need to promote awareness of patients' rights, improve access to justice, and establish clearer mechanisms for reporting and addressing medical errors. In addition, efforts should be made to improve healthcare infrastructure and working conditions for medical personnel, as these factors play a critical role in reducing the likelihood of error. These reforms, if properly implemented, will contribute to a more effective and accountable healthcare system within the region. Mr. President of the jury, honorable members of the jury, the conclusion to this study has demonstrated that medical errors and malpractice in Sub-Saharan African countries represent not only a medical concern, but also a significant legal and institutional challenge. The persistence of these errors reflects a complex interaction between weak legal enforcement, systemic inefficiencies, and broader governance issues. Addressing this problem, therefore, requires a comprehensive approach that goes beyond legal reform to include improvements in healthcare delivery, institutional accountability, and public awareness. It is only through such a holistic approach that meaningful progress can be achieved in reducing medical errors and ensuring the protection of patients' rights. This research contributes to legal scholarship by offering a comparative legal framework and practical recommendations for improving accountability within the regional healthcare system, and serve as a useful reference for policymakers, legal practitioners, healthcare professionals, and future researchers. Like every other research, this study faced some difficulties. One of the main challenges was obtaining comprehensive and reliable data on medical errors and malpractice, because many incidents are underreported due to fear of litigations, professional stigma, and weak reporting system. Another difficulty was the variation of the legal frameworks and judicial decisions across the selected countries, making direct comparison challenging in some areas. Additionally, access to some official records and case law was limited, particularly in jurisdictions where legal databases are not readily available. And also understanding the French authors of their writings sometimes was challenging to us because of the language. But despite these difficulties, we relied on valuable judicial decisions, academic literature, international guidelines, and operative legal analysis to ensure that the finding remains valid and reliable. Mr. President of the jury, honorable members of the jury, I sincerely want to appreciate my supervisor, Professor Zita Jean de Gaulle, for continually encouraging and making sure that I get good material for this work. It has been an amazing journey with his undeniable support. Mr. President of the jury, honorable members of the jury, this brings the presentation to an end. I sincerely thank you for your patience, your attention, your contributions, questions and observations, and constructive criticism will help me to better this work. Considering the fact that I am just a new researcher in the field. Thank you so much.
Nous avons suivi Madame Mbah. C'était un peu rapide, mais on a écouté, c'est bien structuré. J'ai critiqué un candidat hier parce qu'il n'avait pas su expliquer un certain nombre de choses. C'était un peu entremêlé, là c'est vraiment bien cohérent. Et vous avez fini par la bonne carte, vous avez remercié vos directeurs. On s'attendait à ce que vous évoquiez également le jury, que vous remerciez le jury, parce qu'on vient de partout, on vient de plusieurs universités. Vous nous dites merci d'être venu, vous aussi commencer par nous flatter. Peut-être qu'à la fin, vous saurez dire de belles paroles quand on va terminer la soutenance et qu'on vous passera la parole pour la dernière fois. Donc voilà. Vous avez évoqué le nom d'un professeur ici, c'est le professeur Acha. C'est lui qui a organisé tout ça. Parce qu'il a dirigé cette thèse, il a travaillé en vous, il a demandé de nous utiliser. C'est aussi lui qui nous a proposé de nous faire, comme je l'ai fait auparavant. Merci pour cette marque de confiance, de considération, d'amitié, en me confiant dans ce jury, parce qu'il y a eu les dons de personnes qui auraient pu propulser, proposer, que ça serait passé. Et je suis vraiment ravi de voir le travail qu'il effectue. C'est impressionnant parce qu'on en a qui sont de beaux calibres, mais qui ne parviennent pas à avoir cette cohorte d'étudiants en si peu de temps. Ce qui est vraiment série. C'est un universitaire de parole. Cher professeur, voilà vos candidates. Elles viennent de présenter. Et je crois qu'elle a su le faire grâce à les collègues ont des observations là-dessus. On souhaite avoir votre intervention sur la candidate et sur son travail éventuel. Donc si vous pouviez nous entretenir là-dessus, je pense que ce serait bien. Si vous avez des questions libres à vous, ce n'est pas interdit, même si ce n'est pas d'usage que le directeur de faire des questions. Je vous passe la parole.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Je vais prendre la parole. Monsieur le Président, bravo et tout le courrier. Oui, merci l'honneur que vous faites. Vous faites, ça fait 3 jours de temps. En plus, votre agenda, vous venez présider le jury, les premiers de thèse à l'université. Je suis infiniment reconnaissant. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Merci. attentif, écouté. Et savoir c'était d'évaluer la candidate. Merci. Je veux également remercier le président de la candidate Mbah Zita. C'est grâce à elle que nous sommes aujourd'hui dans cette tâche scientifique. Et comme vous avez dit, je vais présenter la candidate. Et après que moi, je dirais quelque chose sur la candidate. Monsieur le Président, je vais vous rappeler nos travaux master à récupérer de la mine. Il y a tant de problèmes. Madame Zita avait passé pour monsieur. Il a failli à la quartier parce que le master était couvert pour cette semaine-là. Et grâce à vous, ce master a été jubilé jusqu'au petit problème. Lorsque je suis arrivé ici à Ebolowa, j'ai eu l'opportunité de penser à mes études dans la famille, notamment Zita. Et je considère comme mon témoin, c'est le cœur de Malo. Elle est dynamique, je peux voir nombre avec nous. C'est-à-dire qu'il y a tout le monde dans le travail, elle est sur les états, très responsable. Et elle a fait soi à l'époque, elle a eu l'idée de continuer, d'avoir des études à un moment donné, de partager les sujets sur le résultat. Alors, concernant le travail, comme vous l'avez dit, monsieur le Président, elle nous présente un travail qui s'inscrit dans le domaine du droit public, avec une forte ouverture sur la santé, les droits de l'homme et les politiques publiques de protection des patients. Il porte sur une problématique particulièrement actuelle, celle des obligations juridiques des erreurs médicales dans le système de santé de quelques pays d'Afrique subsaharienne, notamment le Cameroun, le Gabon, le Nigeria et le Ghana. Le support de ce sujet répond à une préoccupation majeure des systèmes contemporains de santé. Si l'erreur médicale est inhérente à toute activité humaine, son occurrence dans le domaine médical revêt une gravité particulière sur le terrain et reconnaît en jeu de la vie, l'intégrité physique et la dignité de la personne humaine. Les erreurs médicales nous soulèvent ainsi des interrogations essentielles relatives à la responsabilité des professionnels de santé, à la protection juridique du patient, à la qualité des soins et à l'efficacité des mécanismes de régulation des systèmes de santé sanitaire. Donc, conscient de ces enjeux, la FAMES s'est donnée pour ambition d'examiner les différentes formes d'erreurs médicales, d'analyser les implications juridiques et d'apprécier dans une perspective comparative la manière dont plusieurs États africains organisent la prévention, la responsabilité et la réparation du cas de préjudice qui en résulte. Donc la thèse s'intéresse également aux confusions institutionnelles qui limitent l'effectivité des dispositions existantes et propose des pistes de réforme destinées à renforcer la sécurité des patients et la responsabilité des acteurs de la santé. Et donc, il faut affirmer dans ces objectifs, elle a emprunté la démarche juridique, notamment sur la statistique et sur la problématique pour l'application de l'État. Monsieur le Président, j'ai particulièrement apprécié la volonté de la candidate de dépasser une approche strictement descriptive pour placer les erreurs médicales dans une perspective globale où se raconte le droit, l'éthique médicale, les politiques publiques, la santé et les droits fondamentaux normalement. Donc, c'est une telle discipline, monsieur le Président. Donc, et tout au long de ce travail, j'ai apprécié à Mme Zita plusieurs qualités, la capacité de travail, son esprit critique et sa disponibilité intellectuelle. Donc, à mes yeux, ce thèse apporte une contribution intéressante au développement de notre santé en Afrique. Elle enrichit la réflexion sur la responsabilité médicale, la protection des patients et l'amélioration des systèmes de santé dans un contexte où l'exigence de la qualité des soins devient de plus en plus forte. Bien évidemment, comme leader scientifique, ce texte peut avoir des limites. Et je suis sûr et certain que la candidate pour sortir de ce jury pourra être obligée. Alors, en tant que directeur de thèse, M. le Président, je pense que la candidate a le contrat. Lorsqu'on a un sujet de thèse, on a une question de recherche problématique, on a une hypothèse qui tient, on a une bonne méthode qu'on a empruntée, et on a deux grands axes, je pense qu'elle a la plus importante, et en tant qu'autoritaire, je suis totalement satisfait. Et tout à l'heure, il vous a dit, Madame Zita ou Madame Zita, c'est mon comment gauche, c'est auquel il parle de ma promotion, à tout donner, et votre institution président.
Madame Zita, vous comprenez que vos directeurs de thèse vous apprécient beaucoup, ils disent que vous travaillez bien et que vous avez tiré les cours. C'est pas mauvais, c'est bien quand on a une dame dynamique. Et je découvre que vous êtes passé par au moins 3 universités. Vous avez évoqué à Oudéo. Vous avez eu quel diplôme là-bas? Yes. And you get the bachelor there. Yes. And your master was at Mamela. Donc vous avez fait il y a Oudéo. Il y a Oudéo, puis vous êtes allé à Mamela, puis vous êtes venu à Ebolowa. Vous voyagez beaucoup, hein? Et c'est aussi bien parce que sur le plan culturel, ça vous permet d'avoir une certaine richesse et d'avoir fait beaucoup de choses. Nous allons enclencher avec la période, la partie des difficultés un peu. On appelle ça la discussion, c'est-à-dire contradictoire. On va poser peut-être des questions, on va faire des observations. Et ce sont là les rapports. Ils sont là, ici sur le côté des méchants. Là-bas c'est le bon, là c'est le méchant. Lui et moi là on est les neutres. Donc voilà. Et on commencera par le professeur Zini, qui est de l'université d'Ebolowa. Lui aussi c'est un monsieur de plusieurs universités. Il a fait Yaoundé 2, il a fait Pamela, il a fait Ebolowa, et de plusieurs établissements. Parce que je crois que c'est son 5e établissement ici. Puisqu'il a fait FSJ, il a fait faculty of law au Pamela. Il est revenu ici, faculty of law. Après, il est allé, je crois, à Crédit, école de métier océanique. Après, donc, il a 5 prises de service. Ah oui, il a fait langage. Pour ça, je suis très content d'être à vos côtés. Vous savez que ce que je pense de vous. Il y a un sujet également qui monte et vous marchez avec les bonnes personnes, c'est normal. Il y a un qui est assis en face, il y a l'autre qui est assis à mon extrême droite. Et ça forge vos caractères. Je pense que la science publiciste ne s'inquiète pas lorsque l'on parle de professeur Zili, qui est un monsieur constant au droit, et Madame Zita, qui fait de bonnes observations. Donc soyez vigilantes, prenez bonne note, parce qu'il y a des choses qu'il va vous dire qui pourront vous aider maintenant comme plus tard. Chers collègues, je vous passe la parole.
Merci, Monsieur le Président du jury. Monsieur le Président, nous avons de parler du travail de Mme Zita. Permettez-moi de dire que cette cellule qui nous a guidés, vous avez parlé du cours que j'ai fait. J'ai fait le 2. Je me rappelle lorsque j'étais en Lyon, la première soutenance à laquelle vous assistez. Ensuite, c'est l'autre soutenance, qui est en cours. Je suis à la Bamina, je suis aussi une voyageur comme Mme Zita. Et on a fait, comme Bamina a fait tant pour la maîtrise en enfant. Pourquoi je le dis? Parce que c'est grâce à vous que je suis revenu de là en ce bon lieu qui est Bamina, qui me manquait tant. Je n'ai pas encore là-bas pour celui. Je suis arrivé là-bas en pleine nostalgie. Ça m'a ramené des souvenirs. Je suis revenu de là, grâce à vous. J'ai été transféré ici à l'université de Ebolowa. C'est pour dire quoi que c'est pour dire, Monsieur le Président, que vous êtes venu quelque part sur un cheminement académique. Et la première expérience de thèse à laquelle j'ai assisté en tant qu'enseignant de ça, c'est vous qui l'avez présidé à Ebolowa. Et dernièrement encore, vous étiez avec nous, le fait dans le donc vous êtes un peu comme. Je suis peut-être votre homme, mais je suis votre homme. Donc, vous connaissez tout l'estime et toute l'appréciation. Je disais la même chose du professeur Forby ou Eric, parce qu'il est ce grand frère Antel qui nous a demandé de tout ça de manière triviale, protéger, garder, allier, évaluer la leçon des études. On a mené beaucoup de combats pacifiques, pour ce que j'avais rappelé tout à l'heure. Et le combat continue. Il dit un peu bagarre, ce qu'on dit, monsieur le président du professeur, on est encore là, parce que même le Bamina, et nous soutenons, c'était donc mon père, par exemple, qui connaissait toutes les sites. C'est le même pour ma pour ce chat, il y a comme le langue, et puis soit, on a passé notre temps, on a passé 11 ans à Bamina. Et je disais, il y a 2 jours qu'il avait été mon patron, monsieur le président. Il a été mon chef de département à Bamina, il a été mon chef de département ici à Ebolowa. Je suis peut-être plus destiné à la ressource, mais il connaît ce que tu destiné pour ce temps. I will not say less about the possibility. We are the same batch when we become associate professor. So it is everywhere. I really appreciate the work. You know, good and think about it. Coming from this today, Madame Zita is someone I really know very well. We are coming from. She said you were a master's. I had a master's in the University of Bamina, the Faculty of Law of the University of Bamina. So it's a great pleasure to see her sitting in front of me, defending her thesis. About these theses, my appreciation we need to forward. We are going to talk about the foundation, the substance, and the presentation, or what we usually call the form. I will make two more times concerning the form. I will raise some few things, some formal issues coming from your application list. You forgot page 6, Roman 6. You forgot acronyms. You know, acronyms are the abbreviation that can be pronounced as words, that can be spelled out as words. So we have to add acronyms. Acronyms, right? This pages Roman 6. Go to your summary. Something I noticed, contrary to your classmate who wrote thesis in English and who initially put table of content at the beginning, you decide to do something. This is something I really appreciate. Despite the confirm your work, with those of French with writing thesis in English, I really appreciate it. But there is something in this summary. Go to your part of the summary. Implementation. You forgot to do implementation. Meditation. You forgot to do that. Let's talk into something else. And something also I noticed about the form is your footnotes sometimes have different font type. Let me give you an example. Different font type. For 40, for example. This is not coming. Sometimes they come in movement, and other place I see maybe this area or some this font type. So you have to organize the contact of the footnotes with contact of the main words. So what else can I say about the phone? Other thing, the way you are citing the authors, sometimes you are giving the surname, and sometimes you do not. Let me give you an example. Page 19. Page 19. David Orange issue. But when you go to another page, you see that the surname of authors are related. So you have to analyze the way you are citing authors. Or either you write full names and forenames. Either you have related surnames and you write full names. Okay. And last thing about the form, in general, your bibliography lacks Cambodian writings and noticed it. For example, you forgot someone who wrote a lot in health law. You have a professor in the University of Toronto, Professor Simon Ambele, who wrote a lot about Ebolowa. This is a specialty. So when I went through your bibliography, I didn't see any Cameroonian authors. I don't know why. And even there is even a thesis that have been defended at the University of Paris once ago in 2024 of a lady called Jeanne Laurel Djogo la responsabilité du service public hospitalier au Cameroun, études analytiques à l'alignée de la réalité du droit français. You can see me after I will give you the started. When you are writing on this kind of issue, you have to be sure that you cited many work. Mostly work like with pages, it is important. What else can I say about pharmacies? Monsieur le Président, je pense que maintenant on va un peu aller sur la forme. Et concernant le trompe, Madame, if when I read your abstract, the first image of your abstract gave you the spatial scope. The spatial scope is not announced in your title. Your title is the legal implication of medical law and malpractices in health case state in sub-Saharan African country. When I saw this title, I said, oh, this is very cool. I'm not right in all sub-Saharan African countries. So what I read your first sentence of abstract, I noticed that you reduce it to a sound, a spatial that combines Cameroon, Nigeria, Ghana, and Gabon. So I don't know. Usually when you are writing on sub-Saharan African countries, you have to specify which one in the title. Maybe you thought that because these are bad for countries, now you have to call it. Otherwise, the title is simple. If somebody taking just your cover like that, you say, how can you, when you see the volume of the work, and you cannot write on all sub-Saharan African countries. So in your title, I suggest that those countries should appear. They are only four. Okay? I think we should specify it. And something else that I noticed reading you when I went toward the work, at the first place, it seemed difficult for me to classify your work. Is it the public law? Is it the private law? Or is it the... So I had really difficulty to classify your work. But when you were presenting, you write out the scientific scope that is not specified in the book. You have to tell us in which field. Is it a syncretic, what I call syncretic with medical practice, public law, private law, economy, and so on and so forth. So you have to precise it. And concerning your abstract, I was talking about your abstract a while ago, the conceptual clarification of the theory, the research question, and the disciplinary scope, what I call the scientific scope of your study are not apparent from your abstract. You know, abstract should have 6 or 7 parts. By reading your abstract, you should know where the title, why how do you define the name, why the context, why the research question, why the hypothesis, and so on. What are your results? What are your findings? You should know that only within your abstract. Concerning, let me come to the definition of words. I give you the definition you gave on the notion of medical law. Okay? But I didn't see any legal definition. I didn't see any jurisprudence or case law. This is anything like that. So I have to define medical law as a public scholar, public scholar as a jurist. Okay? Coming from this specific thing of medical law, I will not understand why you define first medical law, and then the second place after the legal education, and then at the last you define medical malpractice. No, you started by medical practice, then later on, after other words, you came and defined medical law. Why? When I look at your title, those two notions are close. Left one is but why is it when you come to define it? So you have to define. We are defining words in accordance with as they are appearing in the title. Okay? So I will ask you the first question because I did not really understood the difference you are making between the medical law and law malpractice. Why do I say that? Because for me, a medical malpractice generally involves a medical law or other breaches of professional duties, and not every medical law amounts to medical malpractice. So, malpractice, I don't see its place there. Malpractice for me did not sound law. Maybe you are going to explain because I look everywhere where you provided definition of medical malpractice, but not according to the law. Not according to you, but you have to tell us what law scholar says about medical malpractice, what law dictionary thinking, what the judges are thinking about this. So I think you embrace two things that for me seem that can be reduced in the same concept. Why did you talk about medical breaches for example? Can you convert medical laws and medical malpractice for example? Because when you go to your research questions, research hypothesis, there's nowhere the word malpractice appears. You can know and look up your research question. There's nowhere the words malpractice appears. Even in your hypothesis, there's no way. So, reading your observation, reading your hypothesis, it seems like you are working only on medical errors. Okay? So you have to clarify it. It's not a question, but these are some observations. If you want to answer about it, you answer with the Mr. President, I'm going to finish by asking maybe only two questions. Only two questions, Mr. President. Hope there is not go. Why have we chosen to write on medical malpractice or medical law instead of negligent medical acts or negligent medical acts, for example? Because for me, that seems more legal. Medical negligent act committed by physicians. Why did you choose to write on medical malpractice? As I told you, this is not really sound very legal thing. So you have talked about negligent acts, medical acts, something like that. So this is the first question. And the last question will be, what justified the selection of the four companies? You explained it while presenting, but I want you to very clarify what is the justification. Talk about the case, companies of case law, or the common law. You say in Nigeria and in Ghana, and company with civil law, you say Cameroon and Gabon. But Cameroon is also a country of the bi-dual legal system. So these are my two questions. and something else, maybe. Is hero synonymous of, is hero synonymous with medical practice?
Sorry.
Is hero, because when we go to your clinic, when I read it, I feel like it seemed to me like hero is synonymous with medical malpractice. So, it's a fair question I ask you. It's fair between the two. So, we have the opportunity to do that. Monsieur le Président, ça, c'est tout pour moi. Et espérons avoir pas de micro pour l'homme de ce plateau. Et répondre jusqu'à la
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Prof, for the question. The reason why can I just answer just haphazardly the way I can? Thank you. The reason why I chose the countries Cameroon, Gabon, Ghana, and Nigeria, like I said in the presentation, is because Cameroon has a dual system, the common law and the civil. And then when we look at Ghana, Nigeria, they have the common law system. And then Gabon has the civil law. I felt that looking at these countries will give me an idea of what I want to carry out within the region, and it's kind of like a representation of the sub-Saharan African countries. So I felt with these two, and being a Cameroonian, having the two dual system, I felt like comparing these two will equally give the work a good standpoint for recommendations. And talking about medical errors and negligence. Right. Yeah, medical errors must not be because the person was negligent or the practitioner was negligent. Medical errors could arise due to several factors. Like I made in the presentation, you could have infrastructure limitations. You could have the workload per personnel. But when we talk about negligence is kind of different because there is what you ought to do, you don't do it. So there is omission when it comes to negligence. Like you're supposed to carry out an act, but you did not carry out the act. So I felt like medical error is different from negligence because with negligence you neglect your activity, what you're supposed to normally do. And with negligence you have limitations as a practitioner, so you have boundaries as a practitioner. There are things that you're not supposed to do. For example,
Monsieur le Président, de l'élection.
Je ne suis pas trop satisfait. Parce que si vous dites que la négligence, c'est ce que vous deviez faire et que vous n'avez pas fait, moi j'ai l'impression que vous mettez la négligence avec l'erreur, that it is the same thing. But you want to explain that it is not the same thing, but when you give the explanation, you have the impression that it is the same thing. Quelle est la bonne différence? Est-ce qu'il y a même une différence? Est-ce que la négligence peut donner lieu à une erreur médicale ou alors la négligence est une malpractice?
That negligence can equally lead to medical errors. Yes, and it leads to medical errors. So, because when you're negligent of what you're supposed to do as an activity, it could lead to harm to the patient.
Président, avec votre permission. Madame Mbah Zita a eu une petite difficulté. She had a little difficulty because we do not clearly stated the distinction that may affect between your personalities that are probably law and private law. What do I think so? It's because you do not really specify what can be what we call food service and food personnel to make some fairly foods. And food that is of the physicians. There was a decision from the administrative tribunal of Yaoundé in 2019, l'affaire Nomo Roman Eugène, où le juge, et d'ailleurs, celui qui était le mandataire au conseil, M. Nomo Roman Eugène, était hors de notre problème. Pour ça, cette affaire, le juge administratif en 2019 a bien clarifié quand il en vient des affaires qui concernent les règles médicales. Il a bien spécifié ce qui peut être une erreur du service public terminé et une erreur du service du médecin en tant qu'individu. Civil law, criminal law, and administrative law. You see, we should not really draw this distinction in the law. Maybe you did it and not see use of what I want to do. You see.
Thank you, sir. I'll take note of that and then look for the case and try to analyze it and improve it.
All right. Merci. Pour vous défendez bien. Je vais sûrement revenir là-dessus parce qu'il y a des nuances là et vous devez me conforter sur le fait que vous avez la puissance que vous démontrez. Donc voilà. Là, je vais introduire un ami, le professeur Fordin. Nous avons notamment été ensemble pendant longtemps au CCI et on partage de nombreuses choses, des jurys, des recherches. Et il est aujourd'hui ici à Ebolowa pour vous. Et je pense que vous gagnerez également à l'écouter. Chers collègues, sentez vous saluer et je vous passe la parole.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, everybody. And permit me to start off with the opening civilities, especially with you, Mr. President, whom I've known for long, we've come a long way, and you remain, one of them, your office in the Ministry of Higher Education remains one of the most welcome to all of us. We thank you, and I want to state again that I'm very happy to be with you this morning. And then I start my right with Professor Tara. We were yesterday together, and he's already said it, that we've come a long way with the fight. And I suspect that the candidate too, do I say is one of the casualties of that fight? Because she had to leave Amanda and follow her supervisor all the way to Ebolowa. The president made made a remark from the beginning that she's traveling a lot, Yaoundé, Amanda. From Yaoundé, they thought they were going to create the University of Amanda to bring the university close to people. And then suddenly she had to leave Amanda again to Ebolowa. The way of saying that, Mr. President, you there at the ministry, if there's a way of bringing public law to Amanda, believe me, there are many people who are interested in it. We can take Madame Mbah as the sacrificial lamb so that it shouldn't happen again. So I thank Professor Tara, and then Professor Gute is our main contact. You from private law, I from public law. Yes. and increasingly, two domains that are getting increasingly, interwoven and transversal. I'm happy to do that around here. Thank you. Then, to my left is Professor Zibi, another veteran of Bamenda. He said it all, that we had a good fight in Bamenda, which is still continuing. While he's in Ebolowa and I in Acha. And I still hope, I still believe that one day we'll succeed to avoid cases like Madame Max from living from Bamenda to chase her supervisor all the way to Ebolowa. You were part of that fight. I congratulate you. You highlight the political situation. You are a lot of people who left Bamenda and came here. And the president said it from the beginning that there are time constraints, and I intend to go straight to your work, which is quite interesting. Yes, and I wanted to point out again, Mr. President, that she is one of the first descendants of Eve to come into public law. She's one of the first to come into public law from Bamenda. Because from Bamenda we have only, there was this lady. If you, can we think of another descendant of Eve again? No. I guess she's the second. Okay, Madam Martin, congrats first of all for the trip that you made up to this point. And my remarks, Mr. President, shall be on the form and then on the content. Form, the presentation of your work. Okay? Yes, the presentation of your work. Content, your contribution to the advancement of science. Okay, we start from your abstract, please. From your abstract. From the abstract, you can see. You write about status, case law, and regulatory instruments. As a jurist, you are aware that there's what we call the hierarchy of norms. Am I correct? Yes, which one comes first? Statute, regulatory instruments, or case law first? Is the integration of case law between statute and regulatory instruments. Does it really sound good to you in the hierarchy of norms? How should it come first? Usually it's la loi, le règlement. Okay? And then in the application, case law emerges. Learn to present your material in a disciplined way so that you know who you are. Okay. Just the same too, you talk about judicial and administrative mechanisms. Which one comes first? Which one should come first? Administrative, because judicial comes in to implement administrative. Administrative comes first in time. Without administrative, the magistrate will not be able to do her work. Am I correct? Then go to page 2, please. I want you to get correct, to get things well, especially. There is something that has got your work throughout. You talk about the sensitivity, the sensitiveness of the legal profession. Am I correct? Yes. The word, the first statement on the background. Are you there, Madam? Yes. The medical field is one which is highly dynamic and calls for high level of concentration and exercise of a high degree of discretion. Is that the word you really wanted to bring about? You propose another word?
Discreet. To be discreet.
No, I suspect you wanted to say the better word should be discerning. meaning a high degree of alertness. Am I correct? It's a high degree of alertness. And then, what is the difference between practice, P-R-A-C-T-I-C-E, and P-R-A-C-T-I-S-E? Take your time, listen to me. Do I repeat it to you? Do I repeat it? Because you constantly confuse between P, that's practice, P-R-A-C-T-I-C-E, and P-R-A-C-T-I-S-E. Is there a difference between the two words?
I guess.
Because you repeated it all over. That's why you got my attention.
There is the English, there's the English and the British.
There is?
The English spelling and the American spelling.
No, one is a noun, practice. The other one is a verb, the doing one, practice.
Yes.
Okay? Yes, so you learn to refine your language at that level. Okay. Then, please, I wanted to point out something for your literature review from page 23 to 54. Quite long and exhaustive. Quite long and exhaustive. Okay? And then, go to page 56, please. 56. I thought, it must come in. Okay, look at the last sentence. We shall employ the doctrinal legal method and the casuistic approach. What do you mean by the doctrinal legal method?
Doctrinal, I mean, talking about text, legal text, and case, we have text, we have laws that are put in place, and we have online sources.
That's not doctrine. Yeah. I thought she wanted to talk about the dogmatic and the casuistic. The dogmatic is an analysis of text, laws. Okay? Doctrine is what universities, lecturers, and other learned people write. They usually come in to confirm that the law is good or that is bad, and then point out lacuna when there should be correction. When we write, that is doctrine. But when you analyze texts, for example, the Constitution, the law, the decree, and so on and so forth, that one is the dogmatic approach. And of course, jurists, the first thing about jurists is their approach. The approaches of jurists is the dogmatic and the casuistic. Casuistic being case law, an analysis of cases. Did you get me?
Yes, Prof.
Thank you. And then we go to page 64, please. The third statement, the third line from the bottom. Well, it starts from the fourth one. Errors occur in every aspect of human life, and the various professions are not left out as they encounter one form, is it of error or of error? Are you there, Madam? Are you there? The third line from the bottom. Forget about the footnotes. Are you there? Yeah. Is it one form of error or error?
Error.
Okay. Then, page 68, I think. Where you talk about, I think it should be page 68. You said medical errors is not exclusive to developing countries alone. You see what I'm trying to say on average? They are not exclusive to developing errors alone. When it's exclusive, it's already alone. Am I correct? Yes. This is already, when it's exclusive, it is alone. You don't need to interject the word alone there. Again, am I correct? Yeah. We are informed. Okay. Then, on page 80, it seems to me your phone also, is it normal that in a thesis you write, don't lie?
You don't think it's uncorrect?
Should we do not? Okay? Don't is really bit too casual. And then you go on in on page 96, you talk about rats who have, who you use that for rats. Rats who have.
What was that, page 96?
Page 96, please. If you write over, since you need to see that. Last line. This lack of water explains why health facilities in Cameroon are constantly infested with ants, flies, cockroaches, and sometimes rats who have. You find that good language? It's all here. It's all here. It's not really worthy of a PhD candidate. Of course. Something like that. Yes. So, then, when you abbreviate something like the World Health Organization, is 79. Should it be in capital or small letters? World Health Organization, should it be capital or small letters? Okay. Then we go to the content now, which most interests me. Content, which most interests me. I want to ask you this question. Why, when you talk about health, why didn't you start from the right to health, starting from the Constitution, which is the supreme law, the ground law? What in fact typifies you? What makes you different from, the private law jurists? It seems to me you start from the Constitution. Even when you put, international text, without the Constitution domesticating or permitting the domestication of international texts, do you think they can be applied in Cameroon? Do you think an international text can be applied in Cameroon? A convention can be applied in Cameroon without domestication? No way. So, probably you start from the Constitution, Madam. You start from the Constitution. And then, I noticed something. You omitted key documents in your appendix. The key documents were omitted. This beautiful Hippocratic oath should have been there. Perhaps the Constitution of the World Health Organization should have been there, because you put it time again. Okay? Yes. And Mr. President, if you permit me, I'm going to ask two more questions, key questions. Yes. You chose medical doctors to hospital personnel to write on. I'll tell you something about this gentleman. I prefer to talk about the race. unfortunately, a good number of you here are not from America. When you go into the regional hospital, right there, we treat, God heals. Okay? Which is perfectly out of order because it's a secular state. Look at mon étude de la République 1, il est indivisible, laïque, the principle of the secularity of the Republic. But this gentleman, I don't know who put it there. Left it there. I have contacts with a few doctors too, who are my friends. I discovered something, it's from them that I discovered the demanding nature of their job. And especially you pointed out the sensitivity which opens them to error. Okay? When these gentlemen, that's my personal experience with them, when they are not very God-fearing, they take drugs. The one that I knew, about 6, 7 of them were my friends. They were asked, then one day I would ask him, what is all this? One of them will turn around and say, Fabi, we see things, we stand things that you don't stand. If you see blood, you run away. And you free to run away. We, it's our obligation to stand. We go into the operation theater, come out to tell the relative of the person that the operation did not succeed. Okay? In terms of liability, that's my question. Should their liability be ordinary? Because already, with the administrative call, they created a special call for us. They take to take into consideration the specificity of our job. Do you understand what I mean? When it's an executive officer who is guilty of some wrongdoing, it is out of question that they go to the legal department, they issue an arrest warrant, he appears before a state council, framed by journals, then behind the desk, they ask you your name, place of birth, remand you into custody the way they will do with somebody who stole a chicken in the village or a mobile phone in town. Their own responsibility is personal. What do you think of the responsibility of medical personnel? Should it be ordinary?
Thank you, Prof, for this question.
But are my remarks correct?
You're very correct, Prof.
Yes, when they don't believe in God,
they want to do what they want to do.
They do other things to stand the pressure. Probably, I got to understand it really later. To stand things that they couldn't really, it's difficult to stand. Should their liability. And then when you it's aggravated by sub-Saharan Africa, lack of infrastructure, lack of equipment, and things like that, is there not a risk that absolute liability may lead to absolute injustice to this gentleman? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Permit me to say that the passion you have with this is the kind of passion I have. So, and that is why I actually chose this topic, because there's a lot of these things that are happening.
You suspect at one time that they are monsters.
Exactly.
Because they see things that they know.
Exactly.
You must see, you must stand.
Yes. Yes. I believe that, Prof, if you have chosen a path to take, I think you should maintain the integrity of the path you have chosen. And like you said, many of them, and those who are not Christian or who don't believe in God.
No, I don't like that. I don't like that because it's a secular state. And then this is a secular institution again. In Cameroon, to end up a speech with God bless you is God of order.
Yes.
I'm saying, no, I'm letting you, we force because we are intellectuals, we do it until the day that law will change. You understand what I mean? Yes. I guess, even in France, the crucifix, toute manifestation des appartenances religieuses ostensibles in public. They don't, even with medical doctors, if a Muslim doctor says in France that he wants to lead patients to pray, they will not accept. They will not accept. Do you understand what I mean? It reached a point, and one time is key. At that time I was a student there. They began to say the crucifix should not be worn in school. Even the question of ladies, because it's buried in the gulf between them, they said even they know. They meant what they said what they meant. And then this principle de laïcité in Cameroon has often occupied the first 3 articles of the Constitution, meaning the writers of the Constitution meant what they said what they meant. It's illegal for us to start off here with a prayer. That's the truth. Okay. Please.
Thank you, Prof. I don't think that the medical personnel or the medical doctors should be exonerated from liability.
No, the question is if their responsibility should be ordinary. Could it not be a system where they are tried by their own peers? Do you understand what I mean? The jurisdiction administrative from the beginning was never. Right, Monsieur le Président? Yes, the Conseil d'État was never a court from the beginning. It was by a decision of the Conseil Constitutionnel of 1980 that they began to consider the administrative courts as part of the judiciary. From the beginning, the Conseil de Préfecture, then their responsibility today is special, specific. I constant, okay.
Yeah, now they have the Cameroon National Council that they have the powers to sit and try their own.
Good.
Yes, they have that power to sit and try their own, and they have sanctions attached to the causes.
A kind of recognition of the complexity of their job.
Yes, Prof.
Okay, concerning my practice. That's my last question again, Mr. President. Concerning my, do you know this word euthanasia?
Yes, Prof. Merci.
It's illegal in Cameroon, am I correct?
Yes, Prof.
But again, I've told you about this gentleman who got queer habits. Habits that we don't understand, another man doesn't understand. The carer of a patient comes up to him to say, doctor, we didn't sleep. Pains. We didn't sleep. Do something. He looks at you ordinarily, then simply writes painkillers. He knows, eventually I asked one of them, he said he knew what was going to happen, which is what you can call a passive euthanasia. There's active euthanasia, you give something to accelerate the date, but passive, you don't do anything. Should we punish them? What do you think?
Thank you, Prof. Sometimes
there are people whom I know very well. But unfortunately, I did not know them in different life. What do you think of it?
I think that, like he said, it's difficult for doctors to come out of a room and then tell a caregiver that we can't do anything for your patient. Most times it's hard. We had a case, can you give this example that happened in one of the hospitals that
Absolutely.
Yes. We had a case of a doctor, a white lady that came from the US to one of the hospitals, and this woman has a baby, and the baby's heart is open. Yeah, there's a deformity and the heart is open. And this white lady just comes out from the delivery and tells the woman, still in that state where she finds herself in blood and tells the woman, the baby will die. And the nurses and the doctor, the community doctors that were there, and don't say that here. It's too harsh. Even if you know the child will die, you don't just say it to the woman like that because, number one, she's still in pain, and she's still on this delivery table. It can take her into shock and then she'll equally just die. So we have a way of saying it to our patients.
Absolutely.
Yes. So kind of like you make it a little bit mild, even though you know that eventually the child could die.
But with euthanasia, the passive euthanasia, in terms of liability, how do we treat such a person? Do we say the end of life is only God? That he's a scientist.
You must try.
They tell you at one time, around when death will occur.
So it takes sometimes 3 months, 6 months, then you die.
Yes, and that's why he doesn't want to waste his time when there are cases here.
But I think it's wrong because you, as a doctor, you have the responsibility to do your best, the utmost best.
But he's done his best. That's what he's saying. He knows that it is there, no matter what I do. Okay? Perhaps he has left it to God. But here on earth, somebody may say you should have kept on giving it treatment. The question is there an omission? Is there a malpractice? We don't want to say error because we've already made that distinction concerning error. Should he be punished?
They will need to
Were you a member of parliament?
They will need to prove that indeed he didn't do his job.
Meaning if they prove, you accept. Okay, thank you, Mr. President, for your kind attention. I'm sorry if I've taken too much time.
Merci, monsieur le professeur. Le problème, c'est que depuis le début, personne ne respecte le temps en dehors du professeur Chala. Le professeur Zidi a un peu débordé. Pour vous, c'était grave. Donc, je ne sais pas ce qu'on nous a laissé comme temps aux membres et à moi. Vous voyez, nous qui sommes les neutres, on nous malmène le professeur. C'est-à-dire, il parle, nous aussi, on a quand même lu la thèse et on veut faire nos observations à la candidate. Mais on va voir si on peut se rattraper. Je suis content d'avoir dans ce jury pour ce moment le professeur Ebolowa. C'est la première fois que nous allons avoir cette collaboration. Je pense que vous allez être d'un grand apport à la candidate parce que il lui a été notamment posé l'intéressement comme long dans sa thèse. Et vous savez, dès qu'on fait le droit de la santé, il y a une forte dose de droit privé. Et je pense que madame gagnerait à suivre votre intervention parce qu'il y aura, je pense, de très bons conseils et de très belles observations. Chers collègues.
Well, Mr. President of this jury, thank you very much for this opportunity given to me to examine this candidate. I'm highly elated meeting you for my first time. I have a patron and I did not know him. And today I have the opportunity to know him better and in a better way. I want to salute my brother, my friend Professor Salam, for bringing me into this jury. I want to thank my brother, Professor Mbah, and of course, Professor Zita, who has also been very instrumental to me in the Department of English Law, because as the sole professor, they have often assisted me when a need arises. Thank you very much. Mr. President, unfortunately, I will be caught by time. When I saw this topic, in fact, I fell in love with this topic. And then just to concord what you said, and the question my learned colleague has been asking over there, whether this dissertation falls under private or public law. I think it is more suited under private law. And I was very happy because I knew that this work was going to be very instrumental to my department. That is the Department of English Law. I knew that my students would be able to exploit this work. Even some of my lecturers teaching courses like taught, because the topic is interdisciplinary. It is an interdisciplinary topic. The topic cuts across contract law, law of tort, particularly negligence, medical negligence, and then of course criminal law. And these are issues that I did not find in this work. You are talking of medical errors, medical malpractices. When a medical when an act is intentionally committed, and in fact an intentional act or practice, it becomes what? Criminal. Becomes what? Criminal. So these are issues, and then we are going to work as time progresses. I will show you. But let me first of all, who is the author of this work? Can you prove? Prove that you are the author of this work. Who is your supervisor? Where is it indicated that he is a supervisor? No. That cover page, nobody can do it. In other words, looking at the conventional rules, the first thing here is the declaration page. Are we there? Roman 1. The declaration page, the declaration is supposed to be made by you, the candidate, that I is hereby declare that this work is a record of my own this. And that's all petitions, materials, is understood, have been acknowledged accordingly, and then you do what? You sign. There is nothing here. Anybody can, in fact, if I take this work, I can print a page with my name, and I do what? I paste on it and I sign it. Becomes my work. Now, as we are talking, I want to believe that this one, somebody will say, it is not your own. And you are surprised, you don't defend, there is nothing to defend here. I'm telling you about the company, yes. And then, of course, the certification page, what follows is the certification done by your supervisor. That I hereby certify that this work meets the regulations governing the award of diseases, and it is approved for its contribution to other knowledge or literary presentation and so forth. He does what? He signs. Then we are now very convinced that the work is yours, because most often, anywhere you go, all legal documents must what? Must be signed by the authors. And failure to sign it, in fact, one would argue the other way around, that the work is not yours. And Mr. President, if you look at this work, I think I'm the only one, if you look at the pages, because I had a lot of problems. Your presentation was so good, but the materials you have are ample enough. But the major thing I found in this work is the arrangement. The arrangement, the form, the style. My colleagues have already spoken about what is the content of an abstract.
You need to have the research question, you have the methodology, you have the hypothesis, you have family.
No. Hypothesis, I'm talking of the content of an abstract. Since I have a limited time, let me first of all just take the observations before we move to other issues. My first observation, because if we were to go page to page, I would definitely require more time than permitted by the president of the jury. Your preliminary part, the preliminary part of this work, I want to ask a question. Why did you choose to write this work in parts? Because even the parts are not very clear. If you want to write a work of this nature in parts, you should either have part 1, and you clearly state the issues that will be discussed under the part 1, and then you move to where? Part 2. But then, like we have often told students are more confused when they write in parts rather than writing in chapters. In what? In chapters. I will come into that. So, the preliminary page or the preliminary part of their work is understood to me ought to have been at chapter 1. General introduction. Under general introduction, you have sub 1. Is understood? Should be the historical background. The problem is that you started your work without any solid background as per this topic. If you go to medical errors or malpractice in the UK, in the US, in fact, you are opening. In other words, you were supposed to have opened your work with some historical backgrounds. Because the law itself, where we are, before then, how were medical, or before now? Look at these countries where you cited Cameroon, Gabon, and so forth. Of course, these are countries that were colonized, and most of them have adopted what colonial laws. So, where and how did they get the inspiration? What actually happened before we are today? So, this, I did not see it, and I was very worried and so forth. And then I also discovered that the linkage of their work, the work is disjointed, if I may put it. It's not understood. The paragraphs are supposed to be chronological. In other words, paragraph 1 is supposed to, or paragraph 2 is supposed to arise from other paragraph 1 in some sort of chronological manner, bringing out different issues and so forth. But I discovered that the same issues keep on repeating, and then what, of course, surprised me most is that this work is contained in 2 chapters. I will tell you, the work is not written in chapters, and candidate adopted a style of research methodology strange in legal research. For instance, the entire work, according to the candidate, is arranged or is made up of 2 chapters. At page 195, we have the first chapter. Go to your page 195. That is where your chapter 1 starts. So from pages 1 up to 195, what were you discussing? And under what subheads? Please let's turn to page 195. It says chapter what? Chapter 1. And then the chapter 1, subsequently you turn to the other page. There is no introduction. It's understood. And then you anatomy of parts. Part 1, part 2 makes the whole thing very clumsy, my sister. And we are here. It's understood. We are looking at this work, not at you. The comments we are making here are intended to perfect this work so that we can put it in the library so that people can research from it. You get what we're saying? In SWAN, all the dissertations are put in the work, internet, for other institutions to do what? Exploit it. So the work as it is arranged, to the best of my knowledge, it can be stand. And at the end, if the jury and the president permits, I will maybe propose a new chapterization constituting of 7 or 8 chapters, so that the work, not changing your ideas, but giving the work a more presentable form is understood, because this is, to the best of my knowledge, are written in chapters. Chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, up to the word, last chapter. But this is devoid of this word. We don't have it here. And then, if you go again, we say at page 195, we have the first chapter, chapter 1. At page 245, we have again another chapter 1. Then to page 235. Yes, 245, please. 245. We have another chapter 1. So can you distinguish this chapter 1 from the one in on page 195? Can a work of this nature have two chapters or chapters 1? Is it possible? Definitely no. Then we have chapter 2, which begins. First chapter 2, page 217. Go to your page 217. So your chapter 2 begins at 217. So from pages 1 to 217, what were you discussing? And under what aspects? Under what subjects? Are you there?
Yes, sir.
And then from there, you now turn again to part 1, part 2. Part 1 of what? Part 2 of what? A different and on different pages. As if this was not enough. And again at page 274, you have another chapter 2. So please, something needs to be done. Is understood. In terms of form, in terms of presentation, we need to overhaul this work. I am very interested in this work. I am very, very well interested in this work. Because I know what this work would be, even in my own department, if it is properly structured. So my major problem here is the structure. And if it is well structured, then it's going to be a beautiful piece. Because of, like I said, it cuts across contract. You remember in contract, by the time a patient presents himself in the hospital, once he's already taken and so forth, some money is paid and all this done, there is already a contractual nexus. So, in the absence of due care and skill, what happens? The patient was received, paid the money, and they said sit and wait for the doctor. And for 4 hours, the patient has been there until nobody attends to the patient collapses and so forth. Under contract, can an action be maintained? Under what? You should be able to know this. And I want to see it in this work, please. This work you could even just adopt medical negligence. Medical negligence would have covered errors, malpractices without, and so forth and so forth. So under the law of what? The tort. There is a whole, in fact, you have a plethora of materials on medical what? Negligence. And in negligence, the law, the court is done you against what? Stephenson. The 3 principles: duty of care, breach, is understood, and proof of what? Possession and damage. Until you do all these things well, telling us here and so forth, you've not told us when liability arises. You've not told us when it is breach. You've not told us what happens. It's understood. Because all of this must be established. And you might be of the public law bed. I think when you have the supervisor, nothing stops you from approaching me. We are all open. And we are all here to build this place. I'm not here for the Department of English Law or what, cross of Salah. But no, we are here to build the faculty. To build the what? The faculty. And to train the students. So don't limit yourself only to this and so forth. Yes. And then, none of the chapters has an introduction. Because there are even just 2 chapters. Every chapter begins with one, an introduction. An introduction gives an insight. What do you intend? In fact, somebody that does not even have the time to read the whole chapter reads your introduction, and then from there he deduces what the student. How do you intend to read it? What are the ideas? This is not done. And then we discover that the bibliography, page 336 and 64 to 374, it is not written alphabetically. And then it is a mixed up of books, internet materials, no distinction. So please, the bibliography is not well written. If you take to your page 384, table of contents, comes at the end, you discover that it comes at the end. Table of contents, these are the issues that come under the preliminary aspect of your thesis. But you are bringing the table of content at the end of your work, at page 384. This is strange. It's not understood. So all these things need to be restructured. At your pages 382 to 383, you have list of cases. List of cases don't come at the end of the work. But these are things that would have been shown, is understood, at the preliminary pages under the Roman numbering. Because we have the Roman and the Arabic. Is understood. So these are the things that you would have brought before now. And then, this is not only there. When you cite the case, you must also indicate the pages at which the cases are discussed. In other words, if you cite the case, tell us which page. We want to know these things because students are in the habit of some just copy somewhere, and then even when they say see here at page 20, he says see there at page 20, whereas in his work, the case is not discussed at page 20. Probably where he got the case was probably discussed at page 20 and so forth. And then, of course, a work of this nature, you have 5 recommendations. To me, the recommendations are actually very weak. Very, very weak. So much needs to be done. And then, your literature review is completely out of point. What is literature review? I'm asking you.
It's a review of other books, other documents that have to do with similarity of your work.
And you leave it there.
No, you tie it to your
Please,
work.
literature review is a summary of works that are closely related. Remember, no work is complete. And then what are you going to add? Somebody's work, you simply paraphrase it or you summarize it in a paragraph. And so what? In other words, a literature review, the work of an author, you must indicate. Otherwise, it might be plagiarism. Otherwise, it might be copywork. In other words, if you don't tell us that something new will be added, then you have discussed, you've said nothing. You've not made any contribution. So literature review first, look for solid works. You have so many authors that I don't. Look for 5 good authors. It's understood. You show how their works are related to your work. But then the most important thing about it is that how will you differentiate yourself? Huh? Yes. And then another writer will take up from where you ended and also say, Mbah discussed on this. However, there are these issues which Mbah never took into consideration, which we are going to examine in a bit too. And then you move. all the authors you cited, nothing was found. Nothing was what? Was found. What is the statement of your research problem?
Excuse me, sir.
Statement of the research problem. Or what are your research problems? If I may ask.
So, the legal implications of medical errors of sub-Saharan African countries. We want to see how.
In other words, let me guide you again. Why did you choose this topic? Because something probably is wrong somewhere. There are issues that are not moving, and you probably want to contribute your own part by making suggestions, is understood, which if properly studied and implemented, the situation might change. So what are the research problems?
Thank you, Prof. The problem statement is that many patients suffer from medical errors or medical malpractices, but they are not able to have compensations. And so we want to protect the patients. And so we're trying to find out what are the legal frameworks laid to protect the patients.
What are your research objectives?
The objective of this study is to examine the legal implications of medical errors and malpractices in sub-Saharan African countries, specifically Cameroon, Nigeria, Gabon, and Ghana.
This question, are all medical errors or medical practices punishable?
Thank you, Prof. There needs to be proof that there was a medical error. They need to show that there was a duty of care that was breached, and we need to also look at the liability.
No. Let me ask a question again. So, is it every error of practice that is punishable? In other words, the doctor or the nurse commits probably an error or something, and the patient suffers more injury than either he came or the patient dies. Is it in all cases?
It's not in all cases that the medical personnel is punishable. And now we need to prove that this person has to be able to
Madam, let me stay calm. Is abortion punishable? Abortion, is it an error or a malpractice?
It depends on the country, Prof. Because
are you versed with the penal codes?
To an extent, yes, Prof.
Yes. Does the penal code punish an abortion?
Yes, Prof.
And what type of abortion is this? Criminal what? Abortion. Isn't it?
Yes.
You don't know. Does the penal code also exonerate
If there's a threat of life?
if there is a threat of life?
Yes, for the mother.
Yes. And that is why I asked a question. Whether are all medical errors or malpractices what? Punishable. Is that understood?
Yes, Prof.
What role does contribution negligence play in this case, in that topic? What is contributing negligence? Contributing negligence, if I may define, is the contribution of, in this case, the patient to his own injuries. Probably the patient came with lesser injuries, but through his own or her own negligence or failure to heed advice. You were given drugs and you were asked to take 2 morning, 2 afternoon, is understood, 2 evening, and you took 4 instead of 2. and like situation changes, who is liable? Is it an
The-
error?
No, the patient is liable. because the patient-
Under what? So he has contributed. So please, do you consent? What? Are you guys of consent?
Yes,
But don't you not fit injury?
yes.
What does it? How can you apply to this topic?
Prof, I'm sorry, I think I'm going to do more of the session time.
Okay, Mr. President, like I said, I would like to propose, I don't know, a phrase capitalization, not altering the word for this candidate, if the jury will accept, so that at the end, I can give this to you.
Monsieur le Président, Monsieur la Présidente, si vous voulez faire votre jury, là, je vais partir. C'est moi qui préside ce jury. Je préside les jurys depuis 2014. Je n'ai jamais vu ce qui s'est passé. Je dis bien depuis 2014. J'ai fait des jurys avec Joseph Mbah. Vous demandez quelle parole? Merci, monsieur le membre. Nous avons suivi les observations. Et je me satisfais de vos différentes interventions. Il m'arrive rarement de sortir de mon contentement quand je fais la science. Mais c'est parce que je suis un peu face à un problème concernant vous tous. On ne devrait pas se le dire devant ces gens qui ne comprennent rien à notre métier. C'est la nécessité pour le directeur de se contenir et la nécessité pour les membres de respecter le temps de parole qu'il leur est donné. Et vous savez que je suis très attaché aux questions de temps. Personne n'a respecté. C'est pas bon. Personne, à part le directeur, et qui ne se contient pas. Moi, j'ai commencé les jurys avec le patron. Mon premier jury, c'est quand le Kennedy est malade. Je suis maître de conférence en 2014. Et je suis membre du jury, on me demande de le remplacer. Et j'ai présidé des jurys où Joseph Mbah a siégé, des jurys où il a siégé. Je préside les jurys de Mbah, des plus grands. Donc je vais vous prier de suivre ces modèles-là. Quand on vous dit 15 minutes, c'est 15 minutes, 10 minutes, c'est 10 minutes. De vous réapproprier le rôle peut-être d'un rapporteur, d'un membre ou d'un président du jury, parce que nous sommes en train de former des enfants qui vont nous remplacer. Mais je vous félicite, je dis vous quatre, je suis satisfait de vos interventions, à part quelques extensions. Maintenant, pour la suite de ce travail, nous sommes en jury. Et le principe du jury, c'est la délibération. Le principe du jury, c'est le consensus quand il n'y a pas d'unanimité. Le principe du jury, c'est la prépondérance de la voix du président quand il y a partage. Je pense que ce sont des règles, elles ne sont écrites nulle part. Tout le monde ici est à son premier, à son deuxième, 20e jury. Donc, on sait comment ça se passe. Je voudrais maintenant intervenir. Et je vais prendre la parole un peu comme président, mais aussi comme membre du jury. Pour dire que Madame Zita, nous avons suivi votre intervention. Et je vous ai demandé d'être très vigilante par rapport à tout ce qui a été dit. Vous avez vu la brillante intervention du professeur Ebolowa, la pertinente intervention du professeur Fobi et la très bonne intervention du professeur Zita. Parce que la vérité est un peu du côté de votre directeur, mais elle n'est pas totalement de son côté. Pour quelle raison? Parce que vous savez, le directeur est comme un père. Ça veut dire que plus il est avec vous, plus il peut pardonner certaines choses par rapport aux autres qui arrivent en lui et sont un peu plus froids. Faites attention à tout ce qui a été dit, surtout si vous voulez faire carrière. Bon, maintenant, je voudrais indiquer aux uns et aux autres que ce jury met devant nous une candidate qui apprend. Moi, je suis un peu curieux de la mixité qu'elle fait entre malpractice et medical error. Et lui, il vous a entraîné sur le champ du droit pénal à un moment. Moi, j'ai aimé l'élément quand il a dit intention. Surtout que, quand on dit l'erreur est humaine, si je vous gifle par erreur, if I slap you and it is an error, it means that normally it was not my need, my intention. Ça veut dire que l'erreur dans sa substance est constituée normalement par l'absence d'intention. Vous connaissez l'affaire Dame Condoc Émile Valentin. Dans l'affaire Dame Condoc Émile Valentin, c'est un médecin de l'hôpital général, de l'hôpital central de Yaoundé, qui s'en va faire une intervention pour une femme qui doit accoucher dans la nuit. Et quand il arrive dans la nuit pour faire l'intervention, il a bu, il est sous, donc il est en état d'ébriété. C'est comme cela qu'il va mal faire l'intervention et il va perforer l'utérus. La femme ne peut donc plus avoir de rapport sexuel sans douleur, la femme ne peut plus concevoir, la femme ne peut plus un jour accoucher. C'est un peu comme si vous, Madame Zita, vous avez une voiture, vous allez à une fête, vous buvez, vous prenez la route et vous cognez un enfant. Vous n'étiez pas en possession de tous vos moyens. En matière pénale, ça peut faire partie, peut-être parce que vous êtes en état d'ébriété, de circonstances aggravantes, mais aussi parce que vous n'étiez pas en possession de tous vos moyens, de circonstances atténuantes. Parce que ce soit un ou l'autre, vous n'aviez pas l'intention de tuer cet enfant. Le docteur Achungampo n'avait pas l'intention de perforer l'utérus de Dame Condoc. Il faut beaucoup lire la théorie sur l'erreur en droit. Alors que la mauvaise pratique, what she said at page 19, c'est quoi, 19, from a legal perspective, medical malpractice is generally examined through the framework of negligence. Et quand elle continue. He take one example, the example of abortion. Can you imagine that if abortion it is malpractice, abortion it is négligence? Est-ce que je peux faire un avortement par négligence? Ça peut arriver, mais généralement, quand on fait un avortement, c'est que le médecin est informé qu'il doit faire l'avortement. La femme à qui on fait l'avortement, elle a donné son consentement. Et nous avons des hypothèses exonératoire, parce que quand on dit avortement, c'est un avortement. Il peut y avoir un avortement accepté pour protéger la vie de la maman. Accepté parce que l'enfant en naître va souffrir, là ça dépend des états. Accepté parce que la maman a conçu, elle a conçu à l'occasion d'un viol, d'un abus sexuel. Il y a des registres, madame. Vous voyez un peu. Et donc, la mauvaise pratique semble être l'acte mauvais. Si c'est l'acte mauvais, ça peut signifier que c'est l'intervention, pas forcément d'un médecin, mais d'un personnel médical qui avait une intention d'atteindre un objectif, tout en sachant que ce qu'il est en train de faire n'est pas autorisé par les textes. Voilà les nuances. Et ce qui fait que, de nos points de vue, vous deviez apporter les 2 points. Vous vous êtes engagé à apporter les 2 points. Ce n'est pas mauvais d'apporter les 2 points. Mais il faut essayer de signifier si l'un égale à l'autre. Mais si vous les avez mis différemment, et si les dictionnaires disent à un moment malpractice, et en même temps les dictionnaires disent error, peut-être it means that it is not the same thing. Et si ce n'est pas la même chose, ça veut dire qu'en termes de causalité, de méthode d'opérationnalité, mais aussi de conséquences, même des conséquences juridiques, on pourrait avoir des points de convergence, des points de divergence. Parce que dans tout ça, c'est quoi? C'est que la santé s'est mal comportée. Le système de santé s'est mal comporté parce qu'il y a eu erreur, ou le système s'est mal comporté parce qu'il y a eu mauvaise pratique. Donc, du point de vue de l'objectif téléologique, on a un même résultat. Il y a un préjudice qui est causé. Il y a le système de santé qui s'en trouve mal parce qu'il est mal regardé. Ensuite, quand je lis votre travail, moi j'ai bien aimé l'intervention longue, mais très pertinente du professeur. Je commence même with your dedication. When you see to my family, you put 2 points. I think that maybe it is column. It is that? Column. When in French you write column, it means that you will give those who end in this category to my family. And you tell my own husband, my sister, this is your entire family. Parce que si elle avait mis un tiret, my family, we can think that when she said my husband and my sister, she wants to give it, I don't know if they emphasize those 2 persons. Si je continue, I didn't appreciate your acknowledgement for one reason. This is the expression of a religious, je ne sais pas comment dire, apartness. Il a parlé ici de laïcité. Et madame Mbah. Après avoir eu, you are in love, vous êtes amoureuse de votre mari. Il est in dedication and he appears again in acknowledgement. This man. Et c'est parce que je n'ai même pas eu le temps de lire that I'm sure that it is inside your face. On voit que les docteurs, it is good, Dr. Acha et Ebolowa, oui. But, special thing to my spiritual children. When some people say spiritual children, it means that you are a spiritual mother. Maybe you are the sister of la Vierge Marie. Your spiritual sister of children are Pastor Assange, Apostle Ransom, Révérend Miranda. C'est-à-dire que ces enfants sont déjà des révérends, des pasteurs. C'est-à-dire qu'elle est à un niveau Dieu aussi. Moi, je croyais que vous avez dit my spiritual fathers. And Apostle Rita. And in the end, you come to say 2 things. God bless you all. I thank God Almighty for the gift of life, good health, moral, all those things. Can you prove me that God helped you to write this? And you are a jurist. Et on sait que chez nous, la recherche n'a pas d'ancrage dans la religion. Ici, c'est la science. Si on parlait de religion, même des choses comme l'avortement, on aurait des problèmes. Parce que quand on parle d'avortement, quand vous parlez d'avortement avec la religion, Vous allez commencer à dire ce n'est pas bien parce que Dieu pardonne ça, parce que Dieu interdit ça, on va tuer les gens. Et même si on vous dit que l'enfant va naître avec 6 pieds, il faut qu'il naisse parce que c'est le fruit de Dieu. Mais maintenant, scientifiquement, on va vous dire que maintenant c'est un monstre. It is prohibited, you should know it, to make any mention of religion in the scientific work. I think that the first lesson in first year of law, it is the distinction between law and religion, law and moral. The first lesson when you enter in the faculty of law. Those pastors, what is the role of those pastors, apostles, and both? We thank Akangaji because now he said that we should close all these suspect church. Donc, maintenant, pour continuer, madame, je me suis posé a systematical reputation. If I was a political science teacher, et si j'étais un spécialiste de la science politique, par exemple, si on avait mis un monsieur comme le professeur Bokan ici, je pense qu'il allait vous déranger. Why? Because your work it is medical error and malpractice in healthcare system. Je vois le système comme un ensemble. Les hommes, les règles, les institutions, all those things. Et je me demande si les erreurs et les mauvaises pratiques sont si importantes que, 1, ça fait partie du système, 2, ça définit ou ça bouleverse un système. It is like I work, this is groundnuts, you see. If I make a subject groundnuts on the table, it is not the same thing that the subject, my chair on the table. My chair, it is substantive things which impact on the system. Donc il faut bien que les erreurs soient tellement exponentielles, tellement graves. And for African issue, can you think that there is a lot of medical errors? I don't think. Why? Quand on fait le contentieux administratif pour publiciste, the professor Bipun and others say that people, when they have a problem, look for the solution to God. Ils ne disent jamais c'est la faute du sous-préfet, c'est la faute de l'autorité. C'est Dieu qui a voulu qu'on me tape. C'est Dieu qui a voulu que la voiture du sous-préfet cogne mon enfant. Et donc on ne voit pas que c'est une mauvaise conduite ou une erreur de l'autorité administrative. It is the same thing in medical conduct. Quand vous allez à l'hôpital et on fait un mauvais accouchement, votre enfant meurt ou votre femme meurt, vous allez dire que c'est Dieu qui a fait. For you, it is not an error. It is the decision of God. If we have an anthropological approach, ça signifie que finalement, le rapport à l'erreur médicale peut dépendre également de l'état de société. Une société où on est sensible à des violations, et on se dit que ce n'est pas normal ce qui est arrivé. Par rapport à une autre société où on est affecté par l'incident, mais on se dit, bon, le médecin a fait de son mieux, on ne peut pas faire autrement. You see what he said. J'ai vu ça dans un hôpital quand j'étais encore étudiant, on appelle ça hôpital ici, à Yaoundé, où on dit, c'est aussi écrit, c'est Dieu qui soigne le médecin, non, le médecin soigne, Dieu guérit. Je suis donc venu faire quoi chez vous? Je suis venu faire quoi chez vous? Si c'est Dieu qui guérit, vous voyez, mais ça signifie que, in fine, quelle que soit l'issue, la décision, le dernier mot c'est qui? C'est Dieu. Et donc ce n'est pas une erreur, sauf dire que Dieu commet des erreurs, Dieu fait des mauvaises pratiques. Je pense que dans la méthode, il y avait peut-être des éléments de société à relever pour dire que finalement, ça n'a pas beaucoup d'ampleur. Mais si ça n'a pas beaucoup d'ampleur, ça ne prendrait pas véritablement le système. Vous voyez? Je me félicite du travail qui a été fait. Il y a de bonnes intentions et un défi énorme. Parce qu'on rassemblait les pays là. Avec le Cameroun où on dit bijuridisme, on dit non, unité du système, là il faut voir, il y a des thèses là-dessus. Vous partez prendre le Gabon, you was there, I'm not sure. Vous partez prendre le Ghana, vous partez prendre le Nigeria. Bon, on sait qu'en général, maintenant, c'est facile. Vous prenez Internet, vous cherchez les ressources, vous écrivez aux gens, on vous envoie la documentation et tout. Mais souvent, c'est bon de faire le terrain. Et vous prenez donc ces États qui ont des logiques différentes et je subordonne des systèmes de santé différents. On a un système où il y a une couverture médicale, une couverture santé universelle. On a un système où on se préoccupe vraiment du sort du patient. On a un système où c'est Dieu qui décide. On a un système où on finance la santé. On a un système où les textes disent que le secteur de santé est prioritaire, mais on sous-finance paradoxalement la santé, le plateau technique est pauvre. Vous venez les rassembler et sous un aspect juridique, c'est compliqué parce que sous l'aspect juridique, les pays de common law, quand j'apprenais encore un peu ça, on dit qu'ils ont le administrative law. Administrative law is not the same thing that le droit administratif. It's not the same thing. Ça veut dire que le système de responsabilité n'est pas le même. Il y a donc un grand défi dans cette thèse. Mais comme je le disais, autant error and malpractice, il y a des divergences, des convergences, surtout au niveau de l'issue. Autant ces États, parce qu'on dit le droit de la santé est un droit fondamental qui fait partie de l'universalisme. Donc autant cette préoccupation amène, quel que soit le système juridique, à mettre en jeu la responsabilité, je mets l'emphase là-dessus, ultime de l'État. Pourquoi ultime? Parce que nous pouvons avoir le système de santé public, parce qu'il y a des sous-systèmes aussi, vous voulez, le sous-système public, avec les hôpitaux d'État, et le sous-système privé, avec les hôpitaux privés, que même dans le sous-système privé, c'est la responsabilité de l'État. Quel que soit même au Ghana, c'est l'État qui permet que vous existiez comme hôpital privé, et qui est donc ultima facie, une sorte de garant du bon fonctionnement du système privé, du sous-système privé, et celui qui, je vais dire, pour utiliser des expressions de chaput, celui qui assume le dysfonctionnement du système privé et qui assure et assume le dysfonctionnement du système public. Et maintenant, avec des petits enjeux, faute de services, faute de personnel, et même j'ai aimé, professeur Fabien, quand vous avez évoqué l'appréciation de la gravité. Je vous attendais là, madame. Pourquoi? Parce que, dès qu'on évoque la gravité, ça signifie qu'on est dans un système où la faute simple ne suffit pas. Et si vous reprenez la règle encore, on parle de préjudice spécial, n'est-ce pas? Mais on a fini par voir que dans le contentieux administratif qui a évolué, c'est en réalité un préjudice quasiment normal, mais il y a des domaines où on requiert encore un préjudice spécial comme en matière de travaux publics. Et on se demande donc si en matière de santé, on doit requérir un préjudice spécial. Mais si on ne requiert pas un préjudice spécial, on expose le médecin. Parce qu'une faute ordinaire qui conduit à un dommage va amener même le médecin à être tellement prudent qu'il n'aura plus le courage de poser certains actes. Parce que soit il s'engage, soit il engage l'administration qui plus tard va peut-être exercer une action récursoire. Et donc, c'est un choix politique à ce moment. Un choix politique, ou plutôt si vous voulez, un choix de politique jurisprudentielle, parce que ce n'est pas les textes qui vont définir si le préjudice doit être grave ou ordinaire. C'est en fait le juge qui devra le faire à l'occasion de la jurisprudence. Il y a tout ça. Vous voyez comment la thèse ici, vous avez été maladroite quand vous avez répondu au professeur Ford, you have a passion, I have the same passion. On ne dit pas ça à un prof, à un patron. Vous avez évalué. Moi, je ne parle pas avec passion. Je parle avec rapport sur l'intérêt de ce sujet. Donc, c'est tout ça. Je crois que dans l'organisation, il y a des efforts à faire. Il y a des efforts à faire. Donc maintenant, là où on a du mal à nous entendre, nous tous, c'est dans des éléments de fond qui renvoient en réalité à des écoles de pensée, à des manières de faire. Vous voyez? Je ne peux pas le dire en anglais parce qu'il faut que j'utilise les bons mots. Et c'est pour cela que quand le membre du jury fait son intervention, c'est parce qu'il est dans une école de pensée et une manière de faire qui n'est pas celle de l'école de pensée de votre directeur. Ça veut dire, c'est mon ministre qui dit souvent ça, tout le monde a raison. Tout le monde a raison. Mais en fait, c'est parce que le professeur écoute et lui, il sait que voilà comment ça doit se faire, puisqu'il y a une technique rédactionnelle. Vous voyez qu'on ne peut pas revenir sur le fond parce qu'il a dit des choses très importantes. C'est du droit que vous avez présenté. Et les découpages sont acceptables. Les formulations peuvent être revues. S'il y a des choses à revoir en fonction de ce que le jury va décider, cela va incomber à votre directeur. Cela va incomber à votre directeur. Donc, je crois que si on prend une bonne décision, si on prend une mauvaise décision, tant pis pour vous. Mais si on prend une bonne décision, et qu'il y a des incorrections, parce que j'espère que vous avez pris toutes les observations, vous voyez comment il a bien partout. Vous avez vu comment il a parlé longtemps, il y a beaucoup d'observations. Moi, quand je soutenais ma thèse, ça a pris près de 5 heures. Il y avait beaucoup de choses qu'on m'a dites. Mais on a accepté ma thèse. Et après, j'ai pris le temps pour de correction. N'est-ce pas? C'est un peu ça. Je pense qu'une thèse ne finit jamais. Et vous savez pourquoi je n'ai pas publié ma thèse? Parce que je me dis que j'aurais pu mieux faire. Moi, la première partie de ma thèse, par exemple, me dérange parce que je n'ai pas suffisamment analysé. Est-ce que vous savez que ça ne fait pas 6 ans que Macron a publié sa thèse? Et jusque-là, il a publié, mais il cache. Or, c'est une thèse qui a été soutenue en 1994. Il a fallu qu'on force parce qu'il dit que non, la thèse, il a encore corrigé, donc ça ne finit jamais. C'est comme le médicament, on l'améliore, on dit que bon, pour le palu maintenant, c'est Coatem. Après on dit que bon, ça va être Coatem 2, puis c'est Coatem 3. On améliore. Et je voudrais aussi noter ce qui doit être relevé, que vous êtes une dame. Moi, j'ai vu quelqu'un qui possède son sujet. Parce que de plus en plus, on a des gens qui font l'IA, intelligence artificielle, ou des gens qui font écrire leur thèse par d'autres. Vous avez possédé cette thèse. Alors que vous avez cité tous les enfants, là, ça veut dire que vous travaillez, j'ai l'impression, vous vous occupez de votre mari que vous aimez beaucoup, vous faites des enfants, vous travaillez et vous faites également la recherche. C'est, moi je crois, un peu rare parce que si vous avez pu achever dans les temps, c'est que vous avez une forme d'opiniâtreté, pour dire ça simple, vous avez une forme d'engagement pertinent pour dire ce que vous pensez. Ne prenez pas Ne méprisez pas ce qui a été dit par n'importe quel membre ici. Ça, c'est maintenant un ancien qui vous parle. Parce que même la virgule peut faire chavirer les choses. Il y a eu beaucoup d'enseignements. Donc voilà. Je voudrais dire au professeur Tchala que la paternité là, si vous avez vu quand vous aimez votre femme et qu'elle accouche là, elle pleure là-bas, ce n'est pas vous qui accouchez. Et c'est l'enfant qui soutient, ce n'est pas le papa. Vous êtes docteur depuis. Donc je ne vous repasse pas la parole. Je repasse pas la parole au professeur Égoutté qui a fait son job de member of the jury. Et je ne demanderai pas au professeur Forbin de redire quelque chose. C'est mon frère. On fait beaucoup de combats ensemble, des bons combats. Donc voilà, et le professeur Zili, qui est très pétillant quand il fait la science. J'ai souvent un pincement de cœur quand je pense à lui. Un jour, je lui dirai pourquoi. Madame Mbah, Zita, Nek, you want to say something for the end of this jury?
Yes, Mr. President, thank you so much, Mr. President, and all the members of the jury. I sincerely appreciate the input. Honestly, it has opened my mind to a lot, and I promise you that I will make all the corrections if I was accepted. I'll do all the corrections and I will work with my supervisor to ensure that everything that was noted and the comments and observations will be imputed into the work before I will present it. Thank you so much.
Il y a quelque chose qui manque. J'ai fait un reproche début à cette dame. Quand elle a fait son speech, she thanks just one Professor Chala. We don't exist. At the end, I was sure that she will think, we have a lot of things to do, but we came here just for this defense. What happened? It is your doctor of husband who are doing this. This famous doctor Acha Ebolowa, it is her. Acha. You should have something.
Yes, Prof. Thank you, Prof. Professor Mbah. I'm really grateful. I'm sorry that I didn't mention the names from the beginning.
But not the names, but the jury, the entire jury.
I said the entire jury. I said the entire jury, and specifically Prof. I really want to appreciate Prof. Forbin because he's been an encouragement right from the master's program, and he kept telling me that you can push on, and today I'm here, and he's here to give me more advice as a founder. I really want to appreciate, and I want to appreciate Prof. ZB. Honestly, from our mentor to here, in as much as he wasn't my supervisor, he had encouragement to give and to encourage the person, don't give up, don't keep pushing and keep pressing. And I really want to appreciate you, Prof. ZB. Thank you so much. And to Prof. Ekute, I know this is my first time to really sit face to face with you. The first time we sat was we just came into Ebolowa in that Amphi 250 and giving advice and all that. It meant so much. I really want to appreciate you. And I thank you for opening me up to. Oh, when I saw the pages folding, I said, my God, something will happen to me here.
Le membre le plus compliqué est souvent le meilleur. You should know it. Si vous entrez dans notre métier, vous allez le réaliser. Ça veut dire qu'il a pris le temps, n'est-ce pas?
When I saw folded, thank you so much.
Donc voilà, je pense que comme on sait déjà comment ça se passe, nous allons nous retirer tout. Oui. Ça veut dire que nous vous prions de libérer pour que nous puissions discuter entre nous membres du jury. 2026, c'est le 24 juillet, Madame Zita a publiquement soutenu une thèse de doctorat sur le sujet The Legal Integration of Medical Errors and Malpractice in the Healthcare System of Sub-Saharan African Countries. Devant un jury constitué de Abanengolo et Amoudédieu, Ngwafor Bilo, Cham, Zita Ebolowa, Écoutez Mathieu, Ebolowa, Chala Victor, Ebolowa. Ce jury a écouté la candidate. Il a donc délibéré. Et à l'issue de la délibération, conformément aux usages universitaires et à la réglementation en vigueur, le jury apprécie le sujet, la défense qui est faite par la candidate, apprécie les bonnes intuitions de cette dernière, qui est restée rigoureuse dans la méthode juridique, pense que les conclusions de cette thèse sont recevables, et de ce fait, décide de recevoir la thèse. Conséquence, Madame Mbah Zita est déclarée docteur PhD en droit public. Le jury lui demande de prendre en compte l'ensemble des observations, de les intégrer sous la conduite de son directeur avant le dépôt de la version définitive de la thèse, mais surtout de manière orale et au regard de vos talents, le jury vous adresse ses félicitations. Il paraît que je n'ai pas dit la mention. C'est très honorable, c'est évident. Elle va se mettre là, parce que on va demander aux deux HOT de se mettre ensemble pour la vie.
Attention, on vous a tiré.
Zita,
Merci. Le reste des photos se fait hors de la salle.
La shift. Oh, la shift.
Ça fait comme ça.
Salut.